Yes, I'm so happy you all have joined. I'm Ann Kursinski, five-time Olympian, coach, author, clinician, and trainer here at Market Street, my farm in Frenchtown, New Jersey. And I'm really happy to be joined again today for this webinar series with longtime friend, former student, trainer, and now mindset coach, Cindy McKee, where we'll be talking about how mindset matters more than ever in these times. So Cindy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. So I'm Cindy McKee, and I am co-owner of Soaring Life Coaching along with my husband, Bob. And after many years in the equestrian world, as Ann said, and as a trainer and a business owner, I've turned my attention over to the world of personal development. And I spent 10 years doing deep study with some of the best thought leaders in the world in the areas of psychology and physiology and neuroscience. We've developed our signature program of transformational mindset work. And I'm excited to be sharing some of these concepts during the webinar series that we're now on part 3 for. So we will be going over some of these very key points that we've already covered. And we've had a lot of really wonderful feedback after the first and second webinars that we've done. And Ann's going to share a little bit of that now, some of the feedback, which is really kind of fun for both of us.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've gotten all kinds of feedback, actually, some, text messages and little messages here and there, but a couple I wanted to really share, and they've all been very positive, which has really been fun. One, this gal that I know has been watching the webinars, and she comes and rides with me here at my farm in New Jersey, and she brought a horse I hadn't seen before, one that she had for years, a little spooky. Like I say, she's had it for a long time, and he's not like a baby, and she oh no, he's a little spooky. So the flat works okay, and then when we go to jump, and the first little cross rail is okay, but then the first jump that maybe was a little different looking, he put on the brakes, he starts to look, she wilts, he stops. It's just awful to watch. Anyway, this wilting, and so then she comes around again, and of course he jumps it. She sort of hits him once, maybe. I say hit him, and he jumps it. So then she comes around, then we get over that and we do a few more jumps and again, go to another spooky jump. And the same, it's just a total instant replay. Go down, he spooks, she wilts, her body language, this wilt. And I've helped her on another mare of hers. And I said, it's the same thing you do on your other horse. You have got to tell him what you want. And of course he can jump it. And I wouldn't ask you to do it if I didn't think he was up to it and whatever. So she hits him and she gets into him, and it's great. And I said, of course you can do this. I said, just get him from one side of the jump to the other. I don't even care how. And again, that's sort of a visualization. Just do it. Yeah. Jumps a little more, go to several more spooky jumps, no problem, because she's totally changed her mindset, how she's riding. And her sister was there and her mother was there, and then he jumps around like a champion. And at the very end, there's this really spooky swoop that even a lot of good older horses stop at sometimes. It's really an ugly jump. And I said, why don't you jump that? It was sort of a test, and let's see. Sure enough, he pricked his ears and he jumped it. He just cantered it like he jumped it a million times, both directions. And she was amazed. And so was the mother and the sister. But I wasn't amazed, because she had given the horse good riding. And so often with these, you put a professional on, you put a better rider on to give the horse confidence. And at the end I said, so what did you think about today? Or what'd you get out of it? My horse is so confident, she said. I can't believe how confident he is. And I said, but you did that. I gave you confidence and you gave him confidence. If you don't think he can do it, he can't do it. He's going to get that from you. And we said, yes, mindset. We said, just like Cindy's been talking about, it's all a mindset, because halfway through the lesson, and then that really ugly jump that a lot of good horses would stop at the first time, pricked his ears, was just totally confident. So that was one that really quite fun. And for her to see, really live it and see it, and the change in the mindset. Then this other one, another gal that's I know has been watching these webinars, and I've been teaching her virtually. With video teaching once a week since sort of the pandemic started. And actually I'll read what she sent in. This is about her student initially, talking about her student. She was super interested and excited about the fact that we are able to rewire our brains and change our thinking patterns. That was her biggest takeaway. It gave her a lot of hope. I think she's maybe had a rough childhood or something, but so great. It's given her hope, and that just, she didn't even realize that. For me, this is my student, professional. For me, I never really realized that joy and fear cannot really coexist. I've heard the saying that faith and fear cannot coexist, but I've never thought about it in terms of joy with regarding to fear and riding. I will be honest, each week prior to my lesson, I am a little fearful and nervous. The lesson with me, he's talking about. I explained that feeling to my student, and she said, yes, it's anxiety. And my student said, yuck. I am truly joyful, and I love our lesson times together, but there is that apprehension and just slight bit of doubt that I am not good enough, which ironically is what you guys have been talking about a lot on this, mindset. Anyway, there is a lot to digest there, and I'm currently working on rewiring and thinking of things more positively. I love what you said about being positive and direct in instruction. Look up, not don't look down. Also, I have to remember my victories. I've had so many of them. So a lot of great feedback, and that people are really experiencing themselves, which is really fun. So good job, Cindy.
That's just really, really fantastic. And I just love to see how this plays out and how people are recognizing it and putting it to use. And so we have some other questions that have been sent in or either posted on the Facebook Live or in the chat box the last time after the fact, or were emailed in. So in a little while, I'll be reading those questions, and then whatever comes up during this webinar, please, put it in the chat box, put it on the Facebook Live, because Kelly will be picking those up and we'll be talking about them live towards the end. I'd love to just do a little review like we've been going over, just to really get some of these key points home. And I'll just start with my chart. If you can see it, we blew it up a little bit this time, but I'll say it if you can't see it, because I know we're on like thumbnails on some people's devices. But we call this the 5 primary drivers. And this is what's driving us in the way we're thinking on a moment-to-moment basis. So at the very top, this top circle, I'm going to invite you all to make a chart in your notebooks. I hope you brought your notebooks. The top one says beliefs. And those are the beliefs that we're carrying around either about ourselves, or even just like Anne was saying, oh, my horse is going to stop, or another one, I'm not good enough. And just the whole myriad of things that we have that we talk to ourselves about, that we feel, that inner feel that doesn't feel good. Those beliefs create a little dialogue that we have going on with ourselves. Like, and as that example, my horse is going to stop, or he's not very confident, or I can't do as well as my co-competitors, whatever we're saying to ourselves, it's driven by this belief that we have about ourselves. So that creates a thought, the chatter in our brains, which we all have, might get us up at 2 a.m. or it might be right before we, go into a competition, but they create feelings, and they're feelings that don't feel good. So that's your red flag right there. If I have something that doesn't feel good, an emotion that's going on, it's driven by a thought. Okay, that comes first. It's driven by a thought. So what are we saying to ourselves in that moment? It's driven by a belief. Even if we can't yet quite identify the belief, there's a thought going on that's driving this feeling down here. It doesn't feel good. Now that feeling creates an action, or oftentimes that action is an inaction. The rider that's not going to be very brave for the jump. She has an idea the horse might stop. That's an inaction. She's not going to take action. Or, I take it on a personal level. I use this one a lot because it's a pretty good one. Like, if I don't think I'm going to be very successful in my business, I'm not going to take action to promote my business. Or even more personal, I want to meet Mr. and Mrs. Right, but I don't believe that I'm really good enough, or to find the right partner. I'm not going to take action. I'm not going to put myself out there, quite frankly. In any case, or it could be like a health thing, a weight loss. But the belief about ourselves, creating the thoughts and the feelings and the actions, or the inactions, are producing a result. Get right down to the obvious one we just talked about, the horse stops, right? Or I don't get to meet the person, or I can't lose the weight, or whatever it is. And that feeds right back into our original belief. So anytime you hear yourself saying, I knew it, there I go again, that's this going on right here. That's running the show. And the whole point of this is to really get across to people that this doesn't have to run the show, that we can change this belief that we have about ourselves. It's just a belief. It's a meaning that we've attached to an experience that we've had in our past. It's always in our past. It could be in our recent past, very often it began when we were small, just these lots of building up of little beliefs that we took on about ourselves that most likely are not actually true. So that's what we're going to be checking. I'm going to be referring back to this, throughout today and next week as well. The letter that Anne referred to, that the person didn't realize that she could be in one state of being or could not be in one state of being at the same time as another one, is its opposite. So we have at any given time, we're either in one state of being, a negative state of being, we call suffering, okay? Or its opposite is a powerful state. Our suffering states are anything that produces like the stress, the anxiety, the overwhelm, impatience, anger, jealousy. They always do better than I do. I don't have enough money like they do. What are those stories we got going on? Comparing ourselves to others. That's a big one. Somebody else has a success. We do an immediate downer and we make that about us. Judgment about others. And anything you can think of that's negative, that doesn't feel good, that's coming from that suffering state. We also call that our primal state, because that's coming from our survival-based mechanisms in our brain. The opposite of that is our powerful state, which is everything that feels good. Our joy, our gratitude, our excitement, our courage. How about that? How courageous that rider felt with Anne. Compassion that we have for others. We can all use a lot of that today, right? Curiosity, creativity, love, anything that feels good is coming from this powerful state. It's not coming from our primal early survival mechanism state, which is where all those negative thoughts come from. It's all rooted in our early survival based wiring. So we had an exercise for everybody. I hope a lot of you did it, and some of you who haven't done it yet, I'll go through it. But what we want to do is change this guy up here, this belief that we've identified. Whatever I say, I'm comparing myself to others, I'm not good enough, I'll never have enough money, I'll never have the talent, I'll never have the opportunity. Whenever there's not, I never, or I should be at a certain level, others are further ahead, I should have won and I didn't win. Whatever the negative piece is that we're telling ourselves that's rooted in a belief here, we can change that original belief and we can change it by making it a decision. So we talked a lot last time about the power of decision, and that we can take a belief that's not serving us and recognize that that belief is actually a decision that we made about ourselves, and we can create a new one. We can create a new decision for, I am a strong and confident rider, right? I do believe in myself. I do know that I'll meet Mr. and Mrs. Right. I can lose the weight. I can get healthy and fit. It's usually just the opposite. And so we made a chart. I'll slide over a little bit so you can see it. We called it a decision matrix. And we made 3 columns. And on the left-hand column of our page, we titled the top of it our old limiting beliefs. And those are the ones that are not serving us. That's all the negative things that we have, that our brains are telling us about ourselves. And we're going to take that old belief. So I'm not good enough. One of the most common root things that are going on in most people's heads in one form or another. And we're going to create a new empowering decision. And that's usually the opposite of that. The opposite of I'm not good enough is clearly I am good enough. I do have some talent here, right? I can work hard and I can achieve my goals. So what I spoke to the last time was that this often can end there. A lot of people do, they say all these really great things, but they really are affirmations. And after a while with affirmations, our brain throws them out because it doesn't believe them, because it has all this evidence based on these old beliefs, these reinforced beliefs stacked against us that we've been going over and over again without realizing it throughout our entire lives. So we're going to create now on this right-hand column, this is your most important column. This is when you want to work, everybody, every single day. That's your new evidence, your evidence for your new empowering belief about yourself. I am a confident rider. Let's just say that I do have confidence. And you're going to name every single time in your entire life that you were confident about anything, not just on the horse heading for a scary jump. Anytime you did something confidently, it's going on this list because our brains are not searching for the positive. We have this negativity bias built into our brains based on survival and survival only. So we want to tell our brain exactly what we want because it's scanning for the negative. We want to let it scan for the positive now because we've told it to. Go look for the evidence. Oftentimes I'll say to a client early in a session, I want to start with the wins. And they'll pause for a minute and say, oh, the wins. And then they'll say, oh yes, this happened and this happened and this happened. But they weren't conditioned to look for the positives. They weren't seeing it. They weren't finding it. We want you to find it here in this evidence column and start writing it down. Everything you can possibly think of. And we call this, when we do this, we call this neurosculpting. We are literally rewiring our brains. So our thought patterns over here go in the direction that we want it to go. And that will become our new default. Instead of, see, I told you, that always happens to me. Instead of, we start to think in the land of possibility instead of what might happen, all the what ifs that we can get a little crazy with. So this evidence column, we're going to work and work and work. We're going to do it over and over. And I used to say this to my own students. I'm sure Ann does too. You have to work what you're working on with your horse all the time, not just when you're on the horse. You're on the horse for 1 hour a day, one particular horse. You're not on it again maybe until the next day. We've got 23 hours there where we can ruminate about the positive and the good and what we're going to create on the next ride, or we can get stuck in, oh, this happened or that happened, or I'm concerned about this. But we want to tell our brains, I'm working on this. We're working on this positive evidence column because we're rewiring. We spent our entire lives making those neural connections for the negative thing that we're working on. And now we've got to work hard on the other ones, just like going to the gym. You can't go to the gym just once. You're trying to build that muscle and that power for that new empowering belief. And when you rehearse that enough, you're going to start looking for it. You're going to start looking for that opportunity to find the good, to find the positive that actually exists, but we're just not seeing it on a regular basis. So, yeah, and if you want to chime into anything I've said right there, that'd be great. Or I can go to some of the questions we've gotten already.
No, interesting, which we had spoken about this the other day a little bit, but, and you've certainly seen it and actually experienced it with me. It's like in my teaching so much, or giving a clinic. I love, and I have a couple of those coming up, but when I teach, I like to push my students and to teach them things, to get them out of their comfort zones in a sense. Yes. And so often, you know, they end up, whether it's jumping a little bigger jump or like having a spooky jump, an unusual jump, something like that. Sometimes even, you know, riding with a knot in the reins or riding with one hand with a knot, some different things, even dropping your stirrups or jumping without stirrups, you know, things that some people might find nerve-wracking. And yet to say, yes, you can do it, or whether the jump is bigger or it's a more difficult course or something more difficult exercise. But I would never do it, send my student to something that I didn't think they could do, or the horse. And I'm honest enough, if somebody comes for a lesson and I think the horse isn't up to something, or I think the horse maybe is a little unsound or has got a problem, I'm the first one to say, you know what, your horse should be jumping lower, or I think you should take your horse to a vet or something. In my personal opinion, no, I'm not a vet, but I think it should be doing less. But I'm the first one then to say, when somebody, you know, I believe my students can do, it's sort of funny. I've always thought everybody can do what I do. I've always said that. As a teacher, as a little kid, of course everybody can do this. So I'm believing everybody can master these kinds of things. So I'm pushing them. And then it's such fun to see, like over a 2 or 3 day clinic, pushing them. And then pretty soon they face their fears and they do it. And it's like, yes, I believed all along you and your horse could do this. You didn't believe it. But then they do. And again, they get all excited. And this is great. And then we've talked about why, how, and why. Some hang on to that. And others, as you go home and it dissipates a little bit. But having somebody in your corner saying, yes, you can do this. And then, of course, you need to say that yourself. But you could speak a little bit to Cindy. Then we have a great clinic, and you've seen it a lot in my training. People doing great. And then maybe after a little time, it disappears.
Right. That's the habits. You know, that's the habits taking back over again. And so while you're at a clinic like where Ann's pushing you past and you are being pushed and you might be a little nervous, but she believes in you more than you believe in yourself at that moment, and you do it and you have a success and it's great. So there's a part of you that gets ramped up definitely in that moment, but you have to keep with it. You've got to go home and you've got to journal about it. What did I do? What was the exercise? how you felt. You got to rehearse that feeling again, your bold feeling that you had during those exercises that you did during the clinic, over and over, because you will absolutely default. It's a given, you'll default. Because that you have so many habits that are creeping in again. You leave the scene of the clinic and you go back to your own stable, in your own arena, and just the environment itself is going to call on your old habits. So it's so valuable to attend something like Anne's clinics where she's going to push you past your comfort zone a little bit, and you're going to have a win, and then to rehearse that win in your head again and again. So it becomes part of who you are, not just a, number of times you go to a clinic with Anne. So now your riding stays up at that level. It takes a lot of dedication, but Anne didn't get to where she is today without that level of dedication. Finding the challenge, rising to it, and then shining a light on that. Look, I did that. That's part of that evidence column. I did that, and I can do it again. I might not do it quite as skillfully as I did during the lesson, but I'm building the skill level, and I'm taking myself out of my comfort zone. We can never make a change without being a little uncomfortable. I used to say to my own students, I say to my clients now when they're trying to make a change, how's that feel? And they say, whoa, that feels awkward if it's something with my current clients, or that feels, I don't know if I can do that or not. Or the kid might say, that's uncomfortable. And I say, good, it means you're doing it. You have to get a little uncomfortable to make a change, and then you have to practice it over and over again, just like we've talked about. I shared it in the past webinar too, that, I'm taking golf lessons. It's a new sport for me, and it's like kind of crazy, but I'm doing it, and I'm diligent, and I'm taking lessons, and I'm practicing and practicing and practicing, because I know that's the only way I'll get a skill set. I'm started at ground zero, none, never held a golf club in my life. So I'm taking lessons and I'm practicing, but I notice as I go and I have some bad swings or whatever, and the ball doesn't go where I want it to, I notice things come up in me about myself. It's a really, really great example of how this works. So you have a missed distance at a jump, or you have a bad round, it's just a bad round. It does not mean that you are a bad rider, but that's what we do back here. So that's a really, really great example. And so for me, I have a bad golf swing, one time, maybe the next time I have a great one. I have to shine the light on the great ones and know that have faith that there will be more.
Yes, for sure. Another thing comes to mind, listening to you, again, and also a bit about, again, the visualization and things, so most every time, for years and years, when I'd go to Europe, and go on a tour to Europe and show it at several shows and ride on the team and compete over there. And again, initially getting over there and think, oh my God, these guys are so good, and turning shorter, galloping in the field, and amazing, watching, the best, really the best in the world. And then there weren't so many videos. There wasn't this kind of webinar stuff you can watch all the time, or, on your telephone or your iPad. But really watching the best, and just that definitely raise the level of your game. Not that I wasn't winning also some of those big classes, but really watching the top ones, and you see, oh my God, look what horses can do, how short they can turn, or how high they can jump, or how fast they can run and knock the jumps down. Like you can watch today videos of Beasley and McLean and Kent and people. But the funny thing, I've got to say 99% of the time, every time I'd come home from a European tour, the first Grand Prix I'd ride in here at home, I'd win it. And that definitely mindset. I'd watch the best in the world. I'd be competing against the best in the world, whether I won the Grand Prix or got a ribbon or the Nations Cup. But every single time, I'm telling you, 99% of the time, the first big class came home and rode in, I'd win. Because again, my skill set, my watching the others, believing I could do anything. Those guys did it. Of course I can do it.
Yeah.
Why not? I didn't win every single Grand Prix, but I'd win the first one back.
Right. That's an awesome point. That in this evidence column, you can use other people's examples too, not just your own. Like, to be able to ride at that level, you can use theirs as an example of evidence that you're building for the possibility that whatever it is you're trying to achieve might happen for you too. So that's a really, really, really great example.
Yeah. Amazing, because it's to see that, and riding with people better than yourself. Sometimes, people moving up in a division, same thing. They want to move up. Sometimes maybe they shouldn't, but to move up or watch the level above yours, or even with a lot of my kids that are doing maybe the low juniors or the medium junior jumpers. And I say, come on, go walk the highs, and maybe even walk the Grand Prix course Saturday night when we're, say, at WEF or at the show. Walk the Grand Prix course, see it, go out and taste it and feel it and smell it, and then watch the riders, even though it's a higher level than they're doing, something to aspire to. And I know as a little kid, oh my God, that's all, to jump bigger jumps. And can I jump in the open jumpers? Can I, jump higher and run faster? And how do they do that? But then when you can take advantage of it, yes, watching it is great for sure, the videos, but even at the shows, to walk the courses, to stand on the rail in the warm-up ring and watch the top riders, what they do, how they do it. Also that they make mistakes. That would be another thing too. Being a top rider, and then sometimes seeing these famous riders make a mistake, especially when I first go to Europe, you're young, or I was young then, and oh my God, these, gods, I'm thinking that, but we're all human. And the same thing, everybody makes a mistake. And in our sport, you lose more than you win. I have to tell you, that just happens. So even some of those things to say, oh, so that again, if I had a bad day or I didn't do so well, yeah, I did see this other famous rider, probably older, famous. Oh yeah, he knocked some jump, or his horse stopped, and so it's not so bad, and that's all part of the game.
Yeah, that's totally awesome. Totally awesome. Yeah, we can speak to that, because if I can go right to some of these questions that came in, I think they're really going to address some of the things that we've just been talking about. So I'm going to read that and start to finish, going to put specs on for that. So this one I love, because this one is Stephanie, if I can say her name. Now that we identify our fears and negative self-talk, which is what we're doing here, which is awesome. Exactly how do we direct that to positive thinking? For example, I miss a distance to a jump badly, she says. And I say to myself, I am so dumb. I always do that. And then I say, this is new thinking, which I love. Wait, I recognize that negative thought. Now her question is, what do I do then? And Stephanie and everybody else, that moment is, remember, that's a moment. So we miss a distance to one jump, and that is a moment. We have to always go to the truth of the matter, right? I've missed a distance to that jump. I can go on and on about that and ruminate, which your brain wants to take you down that path, to ruminate over that instead of all the ones that you got well. And I think Anne would be the first to tell you that there's a few distances in her career that she has missed.
For sure happens.
Right, exactly. But when we start seeing that language, the first step is the recognizing, oh, I'm thinking that. That's so awesome, Stephanie. And we talked about before is when we recognize those negative thoughts, we want to become the observer, like it seems to me she has done. I am observing that I'm having that negative thought. I'm putting a little pause, a little distance between me and its thought. I'm not in it. I'm not in the negativity. I'm observing the negativity. And then from there, I can make a choice to move over to what is true. And the only thing that's true is I'll probably make a lot of jumps without bad distances. That's the truth, right? And I am working on becoming a good rider. So you want to just take that moment once you recognize it. Again, that distance is so key. Distance and missed jumps. That's I'm confusing it. But you put a little space, shall I say, between you and that negative thought that you recognize and say, oh, look at that. I'm having that negative thought. And I'm not going to be judgmental. I'm having that negative thought because that's going to keep me in there. I'm just going to say, I'm having that moment. I see it. I don't like it. I'm going to make a choice to move out. And that's the two states of being. We're either in one or the other, in the negative thought, or I'm going to make a choice to come over here. And sometimes it is kind of hard to like get ourselves over to that side, but that's where we're going to have all the powerful state of mind places. That's where you're going to have better jumps in the process. So that's a decision to make a new empowering thought that will serve you going forward. I used to say my riders even, and years ago, I didn't see it come up in our recommended reading, but the Inner Game of Tennis was the first one that Tim Galloway wrote. And he was all about keeping your focus on what it was you wanted as opposed to what you didn't want. And I used to tell my students, I'm sure Ann does all the time too, but if they jump out of a line and it was bad, they jumped out badly, or they perceived it to be badly, sometimes it's not nearly as bad as they think it was. If they spend the next 3 steps saying, oh my gosh, that was terrible, they've lost their opportunity to regroup and get the horse in the place they want the horse to be to make a good turn, a good approach to the next line of jumps. So you have to throw that out in the moment, And what do I have to do? You'll see the pros do it all the time. They don't have a big reaction if they have a jump they don't like. They quickly regroup and go on to the next one because they're not taking time, because they're so skilled at it, but they're not taking time to attach a meaning to it. Oh, there I go again. You know, I just had a rail down. No, you've got the rest of the course to jump. You know, you might still be in the money with the 4 folders, you know, so keep going. So that's a moment, that's a decision. So I really love that one. This one is really good. So Mary says, hi, Anne. Thank you very much for offering the Mind Matters sessions. I have really enjoyed the first 2 sessions and hearing about your life's experiences. Your dedication and devotion to the sport is such an inspiration. An unexpected surprise for me is this information really applies to life. Not just riding, even if it was my interest in equestrian sports that drew me in. I'm an older adult rider, 50 plus, who started riding late in life in my 30s, simply because I always had a love of horses. To this day, I love the sport and the process of learning how to ride and care for my horse. I always say that I get to go ride as opposed to I have to go ride. My question is, how do I keep myself from feeling discouraged by not seeing the improvements that I truly seek? I feel like I'm always riding for lost time, she puts in quotes, since I started later in life, and as a result, the process feels a bit slow. Well, I clearly know the Olympics will never be in my future. I was wondering what advice you have for those of us who started this adventure as adults, and I love that she said, you know, adventure, you know, so I did answer Mary briefly, and I suggested again that she put her focus on her wins and to write them down. To have the big goals are great. She knows she's not going to the Olympics, but she has some big goals. To break it down into smaller achievable goals, and as she makes those happen on a daily basis, to keep a journal and write those down, because that's going to train her brain to put its focus on her progress as opposed to how far she has to go. And that just speaks to also what we tend to do is the trap of comparing ourselves to others, what we tend to call, you know, compare and despair syndrome. We have to, and can speak to this really well, I'm sure. We have to keep our focus on us and not what others are doing, right, Anne? And just keep our own goals that are clearly personal to us as opposed to somebody else's.
Yeah, so I totally agree with everything Cindy's saying, and I work with a lot of amateurs and older riders as well, and again, to be thankful that you're doing it, which I do sense that you totally get. You're thankful for your horse and that whole experience, and to never lose sight of that. And yes, the small goals, the small wins all the time. I think that journaling, you know, writing things down and or even sharing it with your friends and things, but all the good things that you're getting out of it, as you say, the life's lessons. And I've always said that about horses. I mean, the life's lessons for young people, old people, everybody, they're all there. So to really, really enjoy that and not compare yourself to others. You know, that's another thing. When I was competing a lot, you know, whenever I tried to beat somebody, I never won. I couldn't do it. I always looked up when I tried to beat somebody. If I had a plan, and yes, I'd watch and I'd have an idea of what other horses had done, leave a stride out or a turn. But if I got too wrapped up in what somebody else was doing and I was going to try to beat them, I have to tell you, I most of the time didn't win. More when I had my own plan and did what was best for me and my horse, then I would have way more success. And that definitely a mental thing for me. I learned that. And then I didn't really try to beat somebody else. Like in the prize money, I never knew how much the prize money, people would ask, even the owners would ask, you know, well, what's the, you know, if you win this, how much you win? I don't know. It was better for me not to know. Now there are other riders that now they're all over it, and that's how they get inspired. You know, different people, I'm saying my way, the only way, but that for myself, that was always way more important for me. And just those little wins for sure. And not making excuses that you're this old or that old, or you started late, and you can be proud that you started late and be proud of all that you're doing. Yesterday I taught a clinic I taught, and then I helped sort of judge a mock horse show at, it was cute, at Beacon Hill in Colts Neck, New Jersey. Stacia Madden had me go, and it was really a lot of fun. They were getting ready to get back to showing, but hadn't been able to show. And it was so cute. Bigger jumper people, and then equitation hunters. And as the day went, and then the end, these sort of jumpers, and then these adult jumpers. And this one gal, oh, I forget her name. She's probably listening. But anyway, she was the last one to go, these two gals. And she said, and everybody cheered when she went. They did have a little there of their barn. And she said, you know, I'm 62 and I made it around there, you know, little jumps and on the grass field. And it was so exciting. And then we all had gone back to the barn, and look at all the people that turned out for the oldest riders. It was really cute. So you should be just proud and enjoying it. And yeah, I mean, you're doing great. Keep it up.
Yeah. I often say, like, in nature, there's no such thing as comparing. Like, one flower doesn't say to the other, oh, you're way prettier than I am. Or one tree doesn't say you're taller than I am. It doesn't really exist. It's a man-made thing. It's comparing things. So we have to look at that for what it is. And it's something we're telling ourselves that's not serving us, that really probably isn't true. So I have two more here. The two are a little bit connected, but Stevie wrote, as a pro, I find it a challenge to get a green and nervous rider to step outside their comfort zone and do something that is challenging them. How would you advise a rider to fake it till they make it, or try a different technique to spring them forward until they gain more experience? So, Anne spoke to this a little bit already, and I'll hand it over to her in a second. I certainly would say, that you do have to give them very small achievable goals up front, so they build their confidence, so they can build their evidence list of, I can do this, I can, navigate that jump, or whatever it is they're trying to accomplish on their horse. And it's definitely it's slower in the beginning. I know this from my golf swing. It's slower, it's repetition, it's over and over and over again. And literally, I'm just this week starting to, handle some chip shots. It's like, it's getting into my body. I'm starting to feel it and get it. And with that, I'm noticing a little bit of confidence that I didn't have 2 weeks ago. I think it's the same in the training of the horses. I have to just stay at it. And thankfully, they have you to help them along the way. I'll let you take it from here, Anne.
Yeah, I think just what you said. I think giving them things they can do, and really, when they do something well, great. Tell them, and it is a big deal. And to that same thing, to give them confidence. And there's nothing like repetition. The perfect practice makes perfect. They say that, but just the repetition. And I'm always inviting them to breathe. These ones that get nervous, to breathe, and even to ask them how they feel. Years ago I didn't do that, but they're riding, or they've just finished riding, and what did you get out of that? How did you feel? And to really hear what they have to say. Yes, you share yours, but sometimes it's pretty interesting, because to get them to tell you what they're feeling, actually, don't you think, Cindy, that gives you a very different perspective on, when they can share their feelings out loud also.
Absolutely. That's just a really great place just to acknowledge them, not hide them down, say, oh, this is making me nervous. I don't know if I can do that or not, and just to share that with your trainer in that moment. And from a trainer standpoint, to encourage them to do just that, not to cuddle them, but you want to know what's going on. And the more they verbalize it, the smaller it gets. The more they keep it inside, it grows. It becomes the monster, right? So the more they can just get that out there, then they've also asked their trainer to really to co-work that with them. Now they've got a buddy working them through that, on their own. So they gain confidence, just from that. It's awesome. On a confidence level, and I do think we started to address this last week, but I want to do it again because another person chimed in as well. Andrea said, how can I overcome or deal with fear of having a bad fall? I've had one like 12 years ago and broke 5 bones. Since then, I've been nervous and riding with fear, and I hate that it's interfering with my riding. So unfortunately for Andrea, who's been, 12 years from her bad fall, she's been, and this is what the brain does, she's just been seeing that again and again and again and again, and she's put all her focus, not knowingly, now she knows differently, but not knowingly, but just her survival-based brain saying, nah, don't go there, like we learned hot stove, or, coming out of the cave, our tribal days, saber-toothed tiger to the right, the brain says, oh no, that's going to be that, and that's going to be a problem. So it's going to constantly go back to that piece. You have to give it something new to think about, and that's all your successes that you are having, that you have had. And again, from a training standpoint, which I will talk to, is keeping it doable, keeping it small, and putting the focus on that, win will keep that, just like the student Anne was talking about in the beginning, whose horse was, not so brave, not so courageous, because she wasn't. And then she got courageous, and I'm hoping she's taking notes right now, or she's writing this down, and she's rehearsing those really good rides. at the end, what the brain is doing is rehearsing the bad ones. In our sleep, we're rehearsing the bad ones, and we're making it bigger, and we're running down that what if piece. And the brain's got an answer. I'll tell you what if, it's got an experience back here. It's got an old evidence. So it's empowering this belief of what could happen, as opposed to what might happen, what might go right. And just from a training standpoint, that would be in your camp, and as whoever your trainer is, to help you combat that on a training level that's really systematic. They'll take you through those step by step, so you do gain confidence.
Absolutely. It's not so much making that go away. I agree. It's replacing that thought. Yeah. The doing what you have done and what you have done well, and watch videos of yourself having a great lesson, or if you're competing, you're showing and things, really. And that is mental. And I have to say, it takes a little effort. Also, even doing meditation and that kind of mental work, in a sense, to get a control of your brain, so that those memories aren't controlling you by any means, that you can really, again, enjoy it, be positive about it, think of all the positive things you get out of riding, all of that, and the horse and the experience. But as far as that, and not that, I've had injuries myself, but I don't know, being a professional, doing what I love, putting them aside because of, and then focusing on what do I want. So again, even as a coach, then, for you to really think about what you do want, so that there isn't room when that starts to creep in. Okay, I've got to go forward and straight, or I need to count the number out loud, or to the jump, or I have to remember to keep my, my rein short, my heels down, and count a few things like that. When I teach, I have just 2 or 3 things that I'll give a rider, not too much. I think some teachers give way too much information and just get the rider's mind all kind of kooky, but too much going on. But have a couple of the things that your trainer has told you to focus on, to jump the jump, whether it's counting or pace or heels down, or you're halting at the end of the ring, so you're thinking about the line after the jump, and really focus on those things. That's why how you give your mind, in my opinion, something else to think about other than the fear piece that, oh, this might happen. When that's creeping in, you go back to the other. It's like I said, I think on an earlier webinar, when I would be competing a lot and in the big classes or the Olympic trials and things, going over and over the course in my mind. We'd have hours when there were a lot of horses in, say, at the games, or even in the selection trials, there could be 80, 100 and some in a class, and waiting your turn. And I would walk the course, and then basically the course walk would become my mantra. I would go over it and over it and over it and over it and over it for probably hours. And I used to walk a lot. Now I ride a bike a little more, but I used to walk a lot. But it's funny, a couple of things. Then that, by repeating it over and over and over in a lot of detail, also, I know my subconscious would take over once I got in the ring, because I had rehearsed it so much. I didn't have to think about it so much, but part of that also was that I didn't get distracted by anything else. I really, that's all I was thinking about, and making my mind go there. So again, whether my horse maybe wouldn't jump the water so well, or I'm trying to get on the Olympic team, so that's a stress, if I thought more about trying to get on the team, then I wouldn't ride so well. So for myself, I just sort of did that on my own, kind of learned to do that. I would rehearse the course over and over and over from start to finish. Maybe sounds kind of crazy, but I promise then I was completely focused on what I wanted to do and what the job was at hand, and none of that other bad stuff, negative stuff, whatever could come in.
Completely. What Anne's talking about, she's creating literally a new neural connection in her brain for the success that she wants to see. And as I mentioned before on a previous webinar, when you do they actually have this on camera, you can YouTube it and find it. It's pretty amazing. And you can watch neural connections for thoughts. If we're using them over and over again, they're strong neural connections. And when we stop using that negative thought and we replace it with positive thoughts, that one literally starts to shrivel up and come apart. It's literally a physical thing going on. So it's really, really awesome. Just when the repeat is like, I said, you can't teach a puppy by telling you to sit just once. You know, you have to do it again and again and again, whatever it is you're trying to create. So that's really, really awesome. And you know, you can interrupt me anytime I'm going to look for the next question, because we had a couple on the Facebook that I wanted to get to. And then I think Kelly's going to jump in here and see if we have any new questions that have come in.
You want to touch on the course walk one, since we were just
yes, yeah, go ahead, because you started bringing that one up anyways. It was asked.
Yeah, somebody asked early on one of the first webinars about what do I think about the course walk, or how do I approach a course walk? And myself, very, very detailed. And when I'm coaching my students, I like to walk the whole course from the very beginning to all the way through the first timer to the first jump, all the way to the end. And as you're doing, a lot of people, and sometimes there are so many people at horse shows, unlike today, with COVID, but you know, you're rushing through, you got to get to another ring and things. But honestly, to really walk it very precisely, and when you watch in the big Grand Prix, some of the top professionals, they will walk the course several times, or the World Cup finals and things. They don't just run around and walk it once. They might in a smaller class or something, but especially for my students and even myself when I'm competing, to really be very specific about the walk. What does the turn look like around the turn going to the jump? A lot of trainers, they just walk up the lines. Okay, it's 5 strides or it's 7 strides, or it's a little short, or it's a short pair of planks or something. But to really walk, and I'm always telling, because I watch my students when they walk the course, I say, look, turn your head and look at this jump through the turn. You know, they're looking down at their feet or the ground. I said, you're not going to trip over anything here. It's a sand ring. You're not falling. Look, what's it going to look like when you're on the course, when you're coming around the turn? What's that jump going to look like? What's the line on the other side? Is it a bending line? Is it a straight line? Is it diagonal? Those kinds of things. Really seeing it, the one chance you get, and analyzing, of course, with the course designer, they all have these, you know, is it wide to short, or long to short, or the skinny jump that's careful? I mean, all those details that a lot of that many of the trainers talk about today, they're the careful jumps and the spooky jumps, but literally to be very clear about how each one, you want each one to ride, how the turn is on both sides, or the time allowed. If you've got to make a short turn, the time's going to be tight. When I'm walking, where the options are to go inside or around something, which jump is spooky, so I'm going to give my horse more time at that jump. Those kinds of things, where the start marker is and the finish marker, also as far as the time allowed, or say the jump off. Today, also in the hunters, you know, the handy hunter is so important. Know your options. Know that there's maybe if it's at night and the lights are on and there's a big leaderboard up in the corner, you know, your horse might spook at that. So how do you think about that ahead of time? You know, I'm going to turn early and not let him see it, or I'm going to give him loads of time to see it, whatever's best for your horse. But there's a lot that goes into the course walk, for sure, I think. And it's not just 5 strides, 6 strides, 8 strides over there, but the turn, the thinking ahead, really having a plan that mentally then you can rehearse once you're out of there. Then the other thing, of course, then you have your plan, then you watch a few horses go and you learn, yes, the time allowed is tight, or that jump is really spooky, or it's not really spooky, or how the lines might ride a little differently. So you have to adjust your course walk plan, but that all goes in your head. And then, as I say, I'm going over and over in my head a lot, till it becomes second nature, that I don't have to think about it too much. So when I'm in the ring, it's going to be automatic. Then again, as a teacher, as a coach, again, I ask, even here in lessons and things, okay, so what's the course? You know, I give them a course to do, or some lines, and 5 strides, 4 strides, and is it a short 5? Is it a long 5? How is the turn? You know, I will explain the course in quite a lot of detail when I say something. They have to remember. That's also mentally, a little kid, can she remember? Some don't. Well, even old people, maybe remember, they're distracted, whatever. But I've said, I have a cute little girl I'm working now, but I said, you know, the detail, rehearse the detail, rehearse that it's a short 5 and that's a long 4 and that's a spooky Liverpool. I said, I just said all that out loud, but you didn't say it. You just said 5, 4, 7. I want to hear the detail, but also so their mind is getting it. I mean, it's, you can then elaborate on some of that, but I'm a big stickler for that. I want them to share the detail with me, that they heard it, that they also, they can tell their horse it's a long 5, or they're ready to support their horse at that spooky jump, not, oh man, he spooked and whatever. I know, I told you he's going to spook at the jump. You got to remember, you got to hear it. So again, that they rehearse it. Like I said it, I'm giving you all the details. Right. Anyway.
It's so fantastic. I mean, you really are getting it by the repeat, and all the details. You're getting it into their subconscious. So when they go in the ring, there are no surprises. Yes, the horse might offer something, but they're so tuned into what the course is and what it presents and the challenges that it's, as you say, it's second nature, and then they can ride their horse. They're not worried about all the little things that are so unfamiliar to them as they go into the ring. And actually speaks to this one last question that from Carolyn, that said, I teach elementary school and visualization really works for the kids. So why do I not do it in my life? I love it because we've just kind of spoken to it all already, Carolyn, but it's called habit. We have to develop new habits, new intentions. We are going to slide. We are going to go for the pizza and the Coke versus the healthy plant-based meal. We don't put our intention around what it is we really truly want and to actually do it and create a new habit. Our old habits, whether it's, our thoughts, our actions, are going to pull us in the direction of our old results, which are not what we want. We want new results. So we have to intentionally create these new habits. So that is all I have. And if I think I may have just in my talking covered probably a couple others that came up on Facebook last time, but I think we could, if you're ready, Ann, turn it over to Kelly.
Yeah, that'd be great.
There she is. Hi, Kelly.
So I think you did cover this question a bit, but I think this is slightly different. It's probably worth reading this one as well. So have you ever had an injury that kept you out of the saddle for a lengthy period of time? And if so, how did you mentally cope with either the anxieties of not coming back as physically or mentally strong, or the frustrations of lost time on the back of your horse, especially after coming off of a year of learning highs and big achievements in the show ring?
Good one for you, Ann. You can speak to this. I'll tag on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I've been pretty lucky that I haven't had a lot of big injuries in my career, but there was a time, I don't know, I had late 80s, I don't know, late 80s. But I had several concussions. Most people wouldn't really say that, wouldn't know that now, but the Leslies and Michael and people in my generation that were competing then, for sure, I had several concussions. Silly things, and then in the end, actually, I'm the first rider to wear a chin strap when I rode, even before they were mandatory. And then I was really in on having chin straps, protective headgear always, because I had several concussions. And at one point, I had like a couple in a row, which really was not good. I had the one I had, a horse jumped up and I had already had one. And that's where, again, people start riding maybe sometimes too soon with a concussion. And now they're talking all this concussion stuff, and I hear about it and read about it. And way back when, we didn't really so much, and there wasn't a chin strap. Anyway, horse jumped up a bank and then kind of spooked and fell back off the bank. And I hit my head on the railroad tie. But that was like my second or third one, and I don't know, a couple of months. And I'm very lucky that I am okay. Sometimes I think, oh man, I hit my head. But then for a long time, I have to say, I didn't compete. I went and I had my head checked out, and I had to wait for the results. And I didn't remember things. My short-term memory was not so good. I remember I went to WEF and I had started competing then, but I think I took 5 months off, maybe longer. It was a long time that I didn't ride. And it was funny because at the time it was scary, and all I wanted to do was ride. But what if I could ride? And maybe I would do sports psychology or something else. I would, something like this mindset, I think. But anyway, so I really had to take it easy. And yes, what if I didn't get to ride? I mean, there was a lot of stress there for sure. And I had already been to an Olympics. I was already into that part of my career, but taking the time, taking care of myself, I have to say, and part of my injuries was because I would come back too soon. And even again, now today with a lot of riders and people, I say, how would you treat your best horse? Don't, if you have doctor's orders, take care of yourself, take care of yourself. that you do, because then you will re-injure. There's a better chance of re-injuring yourself. Same with your horses, bringing them back too fast. But the mental part of it, to really, all I wanted to do was ride. And so again, I think in the beginning, for sure, a little fear of, oh, I don't want to hit my head again. But then, just like I'm talking about, to focus on what to do and how to do it, came back slowly, for sure, came back slowly. And I have to be honest, when I started, I sometimes couldn't remember the whole course. And I didn't really share that with anybody. I was walking the courses in Wellington, and sometimes it was like, ooh, I don't really remember the whole thing. After I'd walked it, and I'd talk about it, and because of some damage to my brain, I guess, I don't know. And that was after months. But it was really the design. I wanted to do it. And then again, that same, be patient. Don't beat yourself up that you had the accident or why you had the accident or any of that stuff. That doesn't speed anything up. You only feel worse about yourself. I would always say, take care of yourself like your best horse. What would you do for your best horse? And you still love your horse, and your horse is still a great horse, and your horse is a wonderful guy. We don't do that to ourselves. We mostly beat ourselves up, and what Cindy's saying, us see all the negative stuff. So, and it's happened to many riders. There are a lot of riders, a lot of top riders that have had an injury, and they're out for a while. And to really, in the end, believe, yes, and this is a student of mine, I think, that sent this one in. Yes, you had a great season, even if you're not my student, but you did do great. You had a great season. You're going to come back. Give yourself time to heal. And like I say, just like your best horse, just like your best friend. What would you be telling your best friend? But mentally, you're going to get back to the same place. You are. And yours, the one I'm thinking of, was not a riding accident. This was something else. This was not a riding accident. It just kept you off the horse. But even like we said about the other one with the fear of riding and having another accident, take it slowly. Remember all your wins. It's happened to a gazillion other people, and they come back just fine, or they come back and they're out there winning and being successful. So I don't even think about that part of my life ever anymore. I mean, it doesn't even like I totally forgot about it even until this question that I just saw. So anyway, Cindy, you can talk more about it, but if that's what you want to ride, you're going to ride, you're going to do great. Yeah.
That falls into the category of one is of comparing ourselves to others, not feeling like I should be right along keeping up with everybody at the same time. But as we know, there's always another horse show. There's always another horse show, and there's always another horse show. Maybe not right now, but that's always been the case. There's always the opportunity, and we can get ourselves out of comparing and thinking we should be in a certain way. And doing what Ann says is to take time and put the focus on you, so you can come out as the best you that you can be. It also talks a little bit to what we'll be talking about next week. I'm going to bring it all home, but one of the biggest pieces is, how do we navigate everything being different and with all the chaos going on in the world, and still be in that mindset to be moving ahead. So it's all going to be part of the same thing. And one of the things we will be talking about is acceptance. And acceptance is not approval, but acceptance is first we have to say, okay, this happened. I am sidelined for a number of months or a year or whatever her certain situation is, but this did happen. And from that place, I can make decisions and choices and set intentions for myself.
And one more thing, actually going back to this and along with what you're saying, but one more thing with that last question is, I know from my experience for sure that when your body is healthy again, when you're really physically fitter and healthy again, mentally and physically, really giving yourself the time to heal, because I've been through different times in my career, sidelined with injuries, gone to physical therapy because of my knee or my shoulder, collarbone, whatever. But it's funny when your body really is healthy and you feel good and you've given it time, or even this head injury. People, you don't have a cast with a head injury. You don't have anything to say, okay, I broke this or I did that. Everybody thinks you're kind of normal, or you look, and you yourself, why am I not out there doing that? But when you finally start feeling better and you say, golly, I really did feel bad, especially with the head injury. I didn't realize how badly I felt until now. I'm feeling better. But even when you physically get fitter and stronger again out of time, just doing it, 6 months later, a year later, whatever, you feel like doing everything you were doing before. I mean, it sounds silly, but I promise that is so true. When you physically are 100% back, I promise a lot of that fear and stuff will go away also. Right now, you're feeling extremely vulnerable because you're not 100%. That I think goes with it. I mean, Cindy maybe could speak to that neurologically, but I know physically when you get back to really being 100% anyway,
Yeah.
a lot of that's going to go away. Right now, it's the voices in your head and you can't do anything, do physically do very much anyway.
Right. And you're not at your best, as you say. So you're not going to have the best thoughts going on in your head. And so you have to just have faith that you are going to feel better. And from that place, you're going to do just fine.
Yes. Yes.
Just piggyback on that, a different person wrote in the chat, have either of you ever had an accident and at the time it made you want to stop riding?
No, not maybe.
I knew you were a no. I would have guessed.
No, but it's certainly understandable. If that's, I don't have all the information on that person, but is it fear-based from the standpoint this might happen again, with which we need to go back to square one, like we've talked to, some of the earlier questions that came in, going all the way back to basics and to really rebuild that trust again. If it's, the voices are telling yourself that I'm not good enough to do it, then that's another piece too. That's a mindset piece that you have to start finding evidence for the fact that yes, you can do this, even though you've had a bad accident or a setback or whatever your setback is, that you actually can do it, and to start building evidence around that. Other times in your life where you've had successes, you want to keep shining the light on those, will help you get through that.
Great.
Yeah, and even with some of these, the injury kind of thing, another thing that I think is good is also, whether it's in our sport or a different sport, other things, to read about there are tons of great athletes in different sports that have come back from injuries, to read that and hear that, whether it's ball player or whatever. There are skiers, these Olympians that have busted up everything and they come back. And so sometimes also reading that kind of material, reading these other stories to say, oh yeah, look at what they did. And as Cindy talks about that, I mean, that kind of belief thing. And
yeah, focusing on the wins, because there are some just incredible stories of comebacks, and to really read about those and be inspired by those will help move you forward.
And hear how they each manage them also. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the next question is probably a little bit about what you guys were planning for the next webinar. And it was for Anne, and it says, how did you feel emotionally competing in the Olympics? So I don't know if you want to answer that now, or say a little now, or save some for next week.
Yeah, I think, what do you think, Cindy? I think next week we touch.
That's a good one for next week for sure. Yeah, because next week I'll just do a little, jump in there for a close, but we're going to be sharing more personal stuff, how we got to where we are and where our thought process were and what brought us here. And so that's a really good spot for that one. If we can defer it to next week, that'd be great, Kelly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that, yeah.
And then I just wanted to add that I put the reading list in the chat for all the participants, and I will also post it on Facebook Live under the video for people who are watching. It's Anne's book list and Cindy's book list, and also have Anne and Cindy's websites and their email addresses if you guys want to reach out to them privately. And that's it. That's all I had to add. If you guys had anything else.
Yeah, I think just mention again about next week. We're going to be, using more questions again to talk to people's individual challenges that really represent many people's challenges, that people see themselves in other people's questions often. We're really going to talk about how, as I say, just through our own personal experience, what the real bumps in the road that we've had to overcome, that have gotten us to this point in our lives that we're really super grateful for, and how we can take that forward, how everybody can take those ideas forward into today and today's challenges, and how we can not be derailed when things are falling apart on our outside world right now, how we can continue to move forward in a way that is really positive, not Pollyanna, not like it's not pretending that it's all good, because it's not, but how do we learn how to live with that and work towards something and still be inspired in the midst of it. So I'm excited about next week, and I know Anne is too. We're happy to do a little personal work next week and share our stories and see who has other questions we can answer. And just to close, I'll give Anne before she starts talking about herself and her program, but if you have the opportunity to work with Anne, you must. If you can trail with her, you can get to a clinic or to a horse show, or certainly to work with her in one of her programs, which she's going to talk about right now.
Well, thank you. And I'm anxious for next week also, we have more to share with you and to continue this conversation. And yes, from even a little more personal, maybe both of us, our journeys in this lifetime. And same thing too, if anybody really wants to pursue this more with Cindy, I think she's excellent at answering these questions of the mind, how we can handle that better. I think we're so fortunate today to have this kind of education and tools that we can use to improve. That, again, years ago we didn't have. So thank you, Cindy. And she's right there to help answer questions and, get everybody on the right track. I think it's exciting. But then I'd like to just share briefly in closing what I have to offer. You can find me, as Kelly said, on my website. Kursinski.com, and I have my riding and jumping mentor membership site, the personal kind of and training like that. But then you can also ship in for lessons, and now that the COVID thing is more open, people are coming here to my farm for lessons. I'm also doing these online teaching. You can send me a video and I can critique it, or like a couple of these gals that I've shared with you that have we've been doing online live lessons with the video, which I think has really been quite a lot of fun. And I think these other gals have been getting a lot out of it. It's totally different, new and different. My brain has to operate a little differently to do that, but I've really been having fun with it, using Skype and FaceTime and things. My book is coming out in July. It's the 3rd edition of my Anne Kursinski's Riding and Jumping Clinic, and all redone with color photographs and a Hunter Derby chapter. So that's really fun. I'm excited about that coming out. And then I am teaching a live clinic at Louise Sirios in Pennsylvania, June 20th and 21st. It's kind of near Devon, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to teach a clinic here at Market Street, July 4th and 5th. So if you'd like to ride in that clinic, that's also all on the website. I'm hoping that maybe I can get my clinic up live stream. So keep your eyes open for that, and I'll let you know as well. But that's what I'm offering, and how you can find me. And Cindy can share how you can find Cindy.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just to go back to you for a second, Anne. If people can audit your clinic, you're going to work on that, that'd be really awesome, because it's so much valuable information to be had by attending one of Anne's clinics, and also to do some live virtual training. Probably if you're living in another area, you now have an opportunity to work with her personally, where you couldn't ship into her farm because you live too far away. So now you can virtually, which I think is a wonderful opportunity. So my website is up there on the slide, and that's how you can reach me, through the email, or clicking right in the website itself. You can contact me there. And so as Anne inferred, I work with people one-on-one in a program that we have, Mind Matters. And I do group coaching, where I get a group of you together, about 20 of you to come together and do some group coaching. And also we are launching a membership site as well, where we're going to keep people up to date and keep their mindset growing and at its very best. So we're really excited about that. And I'm really happy to have been here with you, Anne, today. And it's been really joyful seeing the changes people are already making.
Yes, really fun. And the best thing, one of the additional things, sorry to interrupt, but with Cindy, her mindset coaching is she has been a rider and an instructor. I mean, this is how I met Cindy. So it's not somebody that doesn't understand horses or the horse business or teaching and riding, being a rider, or now she's becoming a golfer, learning to be the student again, all of those things. So, but I love that because she has that whole part of her knowledge and resources, that she was a rider and trainer and everything in a former lifetime. Anyway, yeah. So it's been really fun, Cindy. Thank you again. I'm always learning from you as well. And thank all of you for coming and watching. And I hope you're getting something out of this. And it's been really a pleasure and lots of fun. And I look forward to continuing the conversation next Monday.
Great. And keep the questions coming in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you keep tagging on to the Facebook Live posts. You can keep posting questions throughout the week. So we'll get to them for sure. So thanks, everybody. We're good, Kelly. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.